Fayette.Hauser is joining us. She is part of the Cockettes, a great experimental acid drag is the term that where they coined, a performance group coming out of the late 60s, early 70s, the Haight-Ashbury area, and the hippie mentality of the country at that time. She is going to be in town for the hippie modernism event that is going on at the Walker. And she's going to be having a conversation on Thursday at 6:30, and then a screening of some of the performances from the Cockettes as well. They're going to be talking about that, and she is kind enough to join us this morning to talk about it all. Good morning there, Fayette.
Good morning, Matt. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing very well. It's early for you. I really appreciate you coming in and joining us today.
Oh, my pleasure.
I'm very glad, and I want to just kind of start by going kind of overall here and talking about what the Walker is doing, because they have a whole show coming in on hippie modernism, which is, I think, as a cultural aspect and an influence on the arts in this country, we do not understand the magnitude of the impact that the hippie movement did have on the arts community. You were at, ground zero of that. Would you agree that this is kind of a cultural and societal aspect of this late 60s, 70s that has been ignored, but actually ended up spurring so much of the creativity of this country?
Absolutely. This show is so comprehensive. It goes back, it includes architecture, which I think is a really interesting element. And I was hanging out with some of the architects yesterday. This Viennese architect named Zamp Kelp gave a talk, and he created these futuristic objects. They were involved in spatial concepts and concepts of different environments. And all the way from the mid-60s, this show has everything in it. Mm-hmm. And you can see how much influence all these things have given to our culture. All these things have percolated into our subconscious and are part of our lives now. And we just don't realize the source and who the actual person was who created these things that we accept as just part of the oeuvre that we live in. And there's another one.
As you say that, I mean, isn't as you say that, I mean, one of the things that just crossed in my mind is because I think there are too many closed-minded individuals that think that just sort of happened, like it was a nap. You just fell asleep,
exactly.
and that's not true. There was method to the madness. There was purpose to this whole thing.
Yes, this was a conceptual time. People were very well educated, and the intellectuals wanted to create a new future. This was the modern world that was created by certain people, and you can see exactly who created what. Now it's accepted. Our modern world is accepted, but it didn't exist before these people thought it up, including our group. All these fashion ideas, a lot of things that are popular now, were created by our group, and they're just accepted, like as if they happened from a puddle.
Exactly. By the way, and we should mention hippie modernism. That's actually in the Walker Art Center up until February of next year. So if you get the chance to head on over there, the exhibition is going to be going on until February. But you are going to be having a special night coming up here on Thursday, talking about another aspect of it. You talked about architecture, the theater aspect of the hippie movement, which was there, and you, once again, with your group, the Cockettes, were really kind of on the forefront of that, and it was almost like it was ready to explode. It was there, all the elements were there, and then came in the intelligent free thinking of the hippies, and really it went from there. Correct?
Yes, absolutely, and we were right in the thick of it in San Francisco, which was an incredibly intense environment with lots of concepts, and we were totally divorced from the mainstream. We created our own society. We were living communally. We were all artists living in a house together, and Hibiscus moved in and said he was a theater. He had grown up in theater. He was in underground theater in Manhattan in the early 60s, and he's the one who put us onto the stage. And so we brought all of our lifestyle and the way we were dressing. We were dressing our fantasies on our bodies, clothing, And we brought that all onto the stage, and the community absolutely loved it. So we continued for 3 years, and we lived out our lifestyle on the stage.
You started on the East Coast. I mean, what drew you to go down to the West Coast?
Well, I went to the West Coast just for the summer. I went to Colorado for the summer, to Aspen, Colorado, which was it was an old mining town that was funky. It wasn't anything like it is now. And it was a hippie destination because hippies were very nomadic and traveled all over the place to explore. And I met Nancy Gurley, who was the wife of James Gurley, the guitarist from Big Brother and the Holding Company. And she is the one who opened my eyes as to what was going on in San Francisco. And she brought me to San Francisco, and I landed right in the nexus of the family dog, which was the early tribe of Chet Helms and Janis Joplin, who Chet Helms created the music scene, and that's where I got plopped into, and I thought I had landed in heaven, and I never wanted to leave, and so I didn't.
And you're sitting there and you're watching. I mean, like I said, I mean, for you, I imagine there was that eye-opening experience. There is something much more deep and rich here than just a bunch of people that just are relaxing or smoking dope or taking drugs. This was a deep artistic culture, and almost kind of a lashing back at the nuclear family mentality of the 50s coming into the late 60s and in the 70s, right?
Oh, yes, it was very buttoned down. I mean, when I grew up in a small town in New Jersey, and I felt that it was really very boring. But we were only 50 miles away from Manhattan, and so I would go into Manhattan as much as I could, and there was a lot of culture going on in Manhattan. So I sought out all of this because I went to college. We were all very well educated back then, and so we were thinking, and also we were part of the youth movement. The country was asking us to carve out a future for America, and we did. We absolutely created something that was new and self-sustaining. It's just taken all this time for people to realize these ideas were actually very fabulous.
They weren't just happenstance. There was purpose. You got it.
No, everything was with intent.
Yeah.
Everything was with intent.
The Cockettes, an interesting group. Talk about your approach to theater with this group when you started performing. What was your goal when you wanted to put on something on the stage?
We were influenced by the Living Theater. They came to town. That theater group, they traveled all over the world. They were not, it wasn't theater as a passive experience. It was an interactive experience. They tore down the fourth wall and involved everyone in the audience into the experience. And it was of the moment. You were not result-oriented with the theater experience. Everyone in the Cockettes was a very intense individual, had a very large personality and a lot of ideas. So you would bring all of that onto the stage, and what happened on the stage happened in the moment, and the audience experienced it as you were experiencing it, which was it forced us into new ideas, and every show was different. Every show was a quantum leap as far as our own experience as to what we wanted to do on the stage, and it informed us for the next show. So then the next show would be more and better. No one was really doing anything on stage that was that free. We didn't really... The whole first year, we didn't really script anything. We had ideas and themes that we would explore on the stage. And a lot of the audience members would jump on stage, and that would be fine, too. It was a very fluid experience.
Well, and that's what it is. It was taking structure and breaking it down and finding the structure without the structure being there.
Right, right. Finding new structure. Absolutely.
And you talk about that with the theater. What you talk about with the architecture was that was kind of the entire movement. Was this? We're not going to live by your rules anymore.
Right. It was a breakthrough. It was I picture that period as a fast-forward vision into the future, which has taken all this time to play out. And now it's actually a part of our reality, are these things that were envisioned all that time ago.
You had a few members of the Cockettes that people would recognize, Divine, Sylvester as well. They came out of that group and went on to much more national celebrity in their own time.
Sylvester was a tremendous talent. We felt very blessed when he came to us. He was from Los Angeles. He came from a music background. He was in the church choir. His aunties were jazz babies on Central Avenue, the jazz mecca of Los Angeles. And he was gay, and he had a Billie Holiday. He admired Billie Holiday so much, and he wanted to exude that aura on stage. So that's what he was allowed to do when he came to us. And the minute he started singing, we were in complete awe because none of us really had stage experience. We had one member that was a musician, and he was the musical director, and he would teach everyone how to sing, but Sylvester was already there.
Yeah.
I mean, when Sylvester sang, a hush came over the crowd, which was usually screaming and carrying on. There was a lot of energy in that theater, but Sylvester was the treat.
I want to make sure I mention this. You're doing an Indiegogo campaign for a photo book about the Cockettes project that is still going on right now, right?
Yes, I have an Indiegogo campaign for the Cockettes Photo Book Project. There are so many photographers that covered us because we were so colorful and innovative, and there's tons of photography that has never been seen. And I want to make a book that includes about 20 photographers and all their work. So this would be a really comprehensive book of the group that would show so much material that's never been out there.
I'll make sure I link to that campaign on our social media later on today on the Facebook, the Twitter side of it. I want to remind people coming up here, this is going to be an evening with the Cockettes. Is over at the Walker Art Center with part of their hippie modernism. Fayette.Hauser is going to be there. The conversation starts at 6:30 with Fayette, and then the screenings of some of the performances start at 8 p.m. at the Walker on Thursday. You can go to walkerart.org, walkerart.org for more information. Fayette, an absolute privilege chatting with you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I want to keep up to date with you on the photo book. Let's see if we can make that happen for you, okay?
Oh, excellent. Thank you, Matt. Wonderful talking to you. And everyone should come in costume. It's Halloween.
Indeed it is. Fayette.Hauser is joining us from the Cockettes. She's going to be at the Walker coming up on Thursday. Thanks, Fayette. We'll take a final break, wrap up the grind when we come back. Morning Grind with